Much, Austin. Well, nearly 12 hours after gaveling into session, Congress has finished its count of electoral votes. Earlier Wednesday, mobs of the president's supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol building to protest the election results. Natalie Brand is on Capitol Hill with more.
The votes for President of the United States are as follows. Joseph R. Biden, Jr. of the state of Delaware has received 306 votes. Donald J. Trump of the state of Florida has received 232 votes.
In the early hours of Thursday morning, the joint session of Congress affirmed President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's Electoral College win after defeating objections to Arizona and Pennsylvania's votes.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are lawfully elected and will become the President and the Vice President of the United States on January the 20th.
It's past time to accept reality, to reaffirm our democracy, and move on.
Earlier, rioters stormed the building, breaking through doors and busting windows. Capitol Police drew their weapons at one barricaded door from inside the House.
You have to go home now.
President Trump posted a video that has since been removed from Facebook and Twitter, urging calm. Hours earlier, he addressed a gathering near the White House.
We will never give up. We will never concede.
President-elect Joe Biden also addressed the chaos here, calling it an assault on democracy and an insurrection.
Today's reminder, a painful one, that democracy is fragile, and to preserve it requires people of goodwill, leaders with the courage to stand up.
In response to the day's chaos, several Democratic lawmakers are now calling for President Trump to be removed from office. Natalie Brand, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
And the mayor of D.C. said in a news conference last night more than 50 arrests were made. She also said 2 pipe bombs were recovered along with Molotov cocktails. She has extended a public emergency order for D.C. for the next 15 days through the inauguration.
While the Capitol was overrun with rioters, our local representatives, including Joe Morelle and Tom Reed, were in the thick of it. Josh Navarro live in Rochester this morning with more on what they are saying. Josh, good morning.
Good morning to you, Mark. Congressman Joe Morelle's office is located inside the federal building here in downtown Rochester, right behind me. But he was in D.C. for the certification of the electoral results when all the violent chaos happened. Congressional members from both sides of the aisle took to social media to call on the protesters to stop and to let everyone know they were safe as the Capitol was put on lockdown. Our local representatives like Joe Morelle and Tom Reed were sheltering in place for about 5 hours before they could reconvene with the approval of the electoral votes. Congressman John Katko, meanwhile, a Republican representing parts of Wayne County eastward to Syracuse, called yesterday's events as an attack on the U.S. Capitol as shameful and completely unacceptable and endangering the lives of law enforcement and countless others. Morelle and Reed say they never seen anything like this.
This is mob rule at its heart. This is the mob trying to instill through force a conclusion that is not based on our Constitution, that is not based on our rule of law, and not based on our democratic principle that has served us for 230-plus years.
Today was just an unimaginable, surrealistic scene here in Washington. You know, obviously everyone has the right to protest, but it's got to be done in an appropriate and safe way, and today was not. But, you know, we may bend, but we will not break. And the resiliency of this country is strong, and we'll get back to our work. And in 2 weeks, we will have a president who was duly elected, sworn in, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
Now, Congressman Reed also says he encourages the president to use his pulpit and to remember his position and legacy in history. We've also reported that Congressman Reed did not object the certification of the electoral results and was the first Republican legislator to call Joe Biden president-elect. For now, we're live in downtown Rochester this morning. I'm Josh Navarro, News 8.
All right, Josh, thank you so much. Of course, a lot of reaction to all of this, to see the statements from other local leaders and more on the actions in Washington yesterday. Head to rochesterfirst.com.
Meanwhile, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer weighing in on yesterday's violence after Congress reconvened late last night. He says the actions that occurred on Capitol Hill were brought on by President Trump.
But make no mistake, my friends, today's events did not happen spontaneously. The president who promoted conspiracy theories that motivated these thugs, the president who exhorted them to come to our nation's capital, egged them on. He hardly ever discourages violence and more often encourages it. This president bears a great deal of the blame.
Well, at the request of Washington, D.C., Governor Andrew Cuomo announcing he's deploying 1,000 members of the state's National Guard to the Capitol. He says the decision is to help with a peaceful transition of presidential power come Inauguration Day. The governor ensures the deployment will not impact the state's continued efforts to combat COVID.